UFC Vegas 54. This fight card consists of 3 blue chip prospects that have a world of potential lined up ahead of them. They're looking to pave the very early beginnings of what could be very solid UFC careers. Other than that, we have 2 premier light heavyweight fighters clashing in the main event. One of my favorite fighters in the game, Aleksandar Rakić, a guy that all he does is win, stepping in there against an ex-champion in Jan Błachowicz. A lot of other exciting matchups all throughout the card. You guys know I'm excited for this fight card. You guys picked a solid episode to join the teller here as we break down the entire fight card. You guys know what time it is. Strap your boots up. Let's get to it.
The teller, the teller, the teller.
It's another day. Left jab, right jab. This is MMA. Mixed martial arts, quick body parts, undefeated when I pick 'em. Who the champ, who the victim? Looking in my crystal ball, I predict the winner. Never stop fighting. If you lose, keep your chin up. Know how the game go. I'm a smart fella. Welcome to the show. This the MMA fortune teller.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller, the teller, the teller.
What is up, you guys? Teller checking back in with you. As you guys see, we got a little bit of a different setup once again here, as we are still in limbo until we have the official studio completed. Please do bear with me. Hopefully the lighting isn't too much of an issue for you guys, and hopefully it's not seducing some of you guys out there too much. You know, I could picture a couple of you guys sipping on some nice red wine, glazing over at the teller as we stride through this entire fight card here. But we really do have a solid fight card. You guys heard me in the intro. I'm excited for this fight card. You guys know I've been a big fan of Aleksandar Rakic's for quite some time. I'm excited to see how far he can push it. This is a big test here. He's squaring off against Jan Błachowicz, an ex-champion. He's a little bit down in the dumps right now coming off that last fight, but you know he's going to be extremely motivated here, and this is a big fight. We're going to be getting into that. Other than that, Cutelaba, another one of my favorite fighters in the game, squaring off against Spann. Now, we talked about these 3 fighters, these blue chip up-and-coming fighters. The fighters I was talking about was Jake Hadley. I was talking about Tatsuro, Taira, and Nick Maximov as well. I know Nick Maximov is 2-0 already in the UFC, but he's still extremely young, only 8-0 as a pro. And I think all 3 of those fighters have some big time potential lined up ahead of them. So we'll see how they deliver this upcoming Saturday. So we'll be diving into this entire card. You guys know the routine. Also note, we will have timestamps below in the description. I've been getting some messages from some of you guys. I try to get them there as soon as I upload the video, and I promise you guys I will be doing that. As soon as I upload this video, they will be there within minutes. So check the description and expect them to always be there. Before we dive into the recap of UFC 274, which was a major profitable card for us, I'm very excited to talk about that. I think you guys know what fight we went in on, the cash cow, Charles Oliveira. A lot of other exciting fights to talk about. Real quick, please do like this video and please do subscribe to the channel. It means a lot to me. You guys know I've been talking about some big up-and-coming things in the near future. It all starts with your guys' help. Please do subscribe to the channel. Catch me on all my social media as well. You guys know I'm over on IG, MMA Fortune Teller _, trying to hit that 10K mark. And as far as YouTube goes, we're right there on the edge of hitting that 5K subscribers. So it means a lot to me, guys. Please go do that for me if you guys could. I appreciate you. Now let's talk some UFC 274 action. Boy, did this fight card deliver. We did have the stinker in the co-main event, which we'll be getting to, but overall this card very much did deliver in my opinion. Journey Newsom pulls off the upset on Fernie Garcia. Lupita Garines takes out Ariane Cornelosi. Looks very good in that fight. That was a play that I was potentially looking into. I did pump the brakes. Ariane Cornelosi has shown to be a tough opponent. Lupita Garines has had some ups and downs, although her potential really is high. And you know, something that's worth noting, we talked about the disappointing performance she had against Dread. You guys know the fighter. Her name's slipping my mind right now, but Dread is her nickname. The very rangy fighter. You know, that was a fight that Lupita did take on short notice and was fighting up in weight. And it was a tough fight for her. And, you know, so maybe we shouldn't be so harsh on her there. But you guys know I've been quite high on Lupita. I thought the line was a little bit high, so I stayed away from it. In retrospect, maybe I should have just jumped on that. CJ Vergara takes out Cledson Rodriguez. A lot of people thought that Rodriguez won that fight with some of the takedowns that he got. Either way, it was a phenomenal fight, a very entertaining fight. And CJ did show that he's a tough dude. So Tracy Cortez takes out Melissa Gatto. This was my first official play. It was a very small 1-unit play that I grabbed at solid underdog odds. I was willing to take that stab on Gatto. I did feel that she potentially showed the ability to have taken the fight. She had Cortez's back at one point in time. She couldn't lock in the body triangle. A couple little mental miscues, a couple little physical miscues, and Cortez used the wrestling in the third round to dominate the fight. Where it should have been 1-1 going into that third round after Gatto did take the second round. But a very small stab. I thought the line should have been a little closer. The fight did play out closely. One thing we should have probably took into more consideration is that Tracy Cortez, of course, dating Brian Ortega. You know, she's regularly down on the mats with a jiu-jitsu whiz like him, so she was ready for it. Andre Fiallo takes out Cameron Van Camp with a nasty knockout. Fiallo's just going out there stringing off knockout victories one after another. He wants to jump right back in there. Keep an eye on Fiallo to keep making some noise. Blagoy Ivanov takes out Marcos Rogerio de Lima. It was a close fight. Ivanov pushed the pace in the later rounds. I will say this, Ivanov, you know, he came out with the wraps on his knees. He looked quite aged in there. Didn't look the same way physically that we normally see him. You know, I would pump the brakes on Marcos Rogerio de Lima and Blagoy Ivanov. You know the deal with Marcos. He's a front runner. That's why I had to pick against him here. He's a front runner and he fades later in his fights, and that's what he did. Brandon Royval, I posted a little tweet on my Twitter, the MMA Teller. I said Brandon Royval blends up Energizer batteries and eats them for breakfast. The guy is so full of energy. Matt Schnell looked very good in the beginnings of this fight, but we see how tough Royval is, and eventually showing the submission skills that he has too. He's nasty on the mat, and I don't know what Matt was doing there though. He kind of stuck his head right into that guillotine, but Royval showed to have a nice tight grip there. Macy Chiasson comes through with the split decision victory over Norma Dumont. What a boring fight. I think Macy Chiasson will feel the wrath of that performance. I really do believe Dana White and the rest of the UFC will not be pleased with her performance, just literally hanging on Norma the entire fight, trying to pray her way into winning a potential close decision, and that's what she did. But you know what? Norma needs to learn how to get off the cage there. She has to work on some things too. So Francisco Trinaldo styles on Danny Roberts. How about Francisco Trinaldo? The guy does not age at all. The guy is something else. Randy Brown gets the split decision victory over Chaos Williams in a very closely contested matchup. Both these guys had moments. Randy Brown finished the fight strong in the third round, and I think that was the deciding factor there. Ovin St. Preux wins a split decision victory over Shogun Rua. I don't know, man. I thought Shogun could have possibly taken those first two rounds. They were close. How did you guys score the Shogun Rua versus OSP fight? Definitely curious how you guys scored it. And what's next for Shogun? I believe he has one more fight left on his contract. And I don't know. Who do you throw him in there with? Michael Chandler gets the front kick to the face over Tony Ferguson. One of the most devastating knockouts that I've ever seen in the sport of MMA and in all combat sports. What a phenomenal front kick that he threw. You know, he was setting it up with the leg kicks, and Tony Ferguson now, you know, he's tasting defeat over and over. He's up there in age. I will say this though, he looked very good in the beginning parts of the fight. He wobbled Chandler on the feet. Would have loved to seen that fight play out a little bit longer, but I also love to see that type of finish. That just made the night right there. That was the biggest moment of the fight card for sure. Even though Charles Oliveira and Justin Gaethje delivered, I really believe that front kick was just astonishing. And then he calls out Conor McGregor, or he wants a rematch with the winner of the main event, which we'll be getting to in a second. And quite honestly, I should just skip right over this Carla Esparza and Rose Namajunas fight. What an absolute snore fest. I did think that Rose Namajunas won the fight. I do think it was a bad call as far as I'm concerned. People were talking about Rose not being active, but Carla was not active either. She didn't throw a lot of strikes as well. She went in for a couple shots. They were basically stuffed, or Rose was immediately back up to her feet, and she possessed good footwork in there. If Rose just pumped the jab a little bit more, threw a couple more shots out there, she takes this fight. I still think it was a bad call at the judges. So, and then Charles Oliveira, this was my play right here, man. We'll pull it up here. I had two separate plays on this specific fight here, and it was Charles Oliveira to win straight up. Got him at -170. Also jumped all over him at -140 when the line dipped after he missed weight. And then we also had a 1.5 unit play on him via sub that cashed. The greatest MMA submission artist of all time. Why not take him for the sub? That's all he does. And that made it a very profitable night right there. So you take that little 1 unit loss on Gato, and then you have both these plays going. And initially, I did have another play. The fight did fall through. I did have Joe Lozon to take out Donald Cowboy Cerrone there. And obviously, I had that locked in at dog odds. And that's a fight that will potentially be lined up again down the line. So that's a free play for all you guys. I think that Joe Lozon is going to win that fight if they reset that up. Of course, Cowboy Cerrone did have some food poisoning and was not able to make the walk. I heard it was quite bad from what I've heard through the grapevine. And but Cowboy Cerrone has announced that he still has 2 more fights before he retires, which will make it 50 fights under the Zuffa banner, including fighting under the WEC promotion and the UFC and whatnot. So, you know, stay tuned to see how that goes. So again, all in all, another profitable night here for the Teller, and a solid fight card. Charles Oliveira, the cash cow. I've made more money on Charles Oliveira than just about any fighter ever. So you guys know in the studio, I might just have to get a big old signed poster of Charles Oliveira, frame it up and have it in the studio because I am looking to throw all types of sports memorabilia all around that place. And if you guys have any recommendations of any good ones, let me know. You guys know I already got the signed Conor McGregor poster with the double belts, the double champ, and we'll be throwing a lot of good ones up in the studio. So that recaps UFC 274. You guys know what time it is now. We look forward to another profitable card down the line this upcoming Saturday, UFC Vegas 54. In the first fight of the card, we got Nick Maximov taking on Andre Petroski. I was quite surprised to see this matchup as the first fight on the card. I think this is actually a very legit matchup here in the middleweight division. I would not be surprised if we see this fight pushed up a little bit. I think it is deserving, especially for the fact that like Petroski's been delivering as far as the action goes. He's been bringing the fight. Nick Maximov, we know he has the name because he's part of the Diaz brothers crew. You know, he's really blended in as one of those types of guys. You see him here posted up with everybody: Yancy Medeiros, Chris Avila. And Nick Maximov is really a staple of that crew. And you guys know that they get a lot of notoriety. Of course, it's all branched off the Diaz brothers, but Nick Maximov has that type of potential. And he's not necessarily the most exciting fighter, but he's a fighter that has some true abilities. And people that know what they're watching are excited to watch him perform. So again, don't be surprised if that fight bumps up. Now, as far as how this fight, how these fighters match up, both these guys favor their grappling. Andre Petroski, he has that wrestling background. Nick Maximov also has a wrestling background, but is very active in the jiu-jitsu tournament scene. He's a very active BJJ player. His grappling has looked phenomenal. We saw him on Dana White's Contender Series fighting a guy that was 2 weight classes above him and still winning those grappling exchanges. A guy that was just a giant of a man. Remember, Nick Maximov stepped in like last minute. I think that was what the situation was. It was a weird situation, but he manned up and took that fight and delivered. He's still only 24 years old. In this fight, he will have a 3-inch reach advantage over Petroski. Both these guys stand 6 foot. Petroski is a tank of a man in his own right, coming off 2 wins. Took out Michael Gilmore, a guy that's not a UFC caliber opponent. You guys know the story with Gilmore. He's the guy that was on the Ultimate Fighter show last minute, got fired from the grocery store. Or, you know, he was willing to take that opportunity to fight in the UFC, and ever since then, the UFC has owed him. But he's not a UFC caliber fighter. And then in the last fight against Hugh, Petroski did show up and get that finish there. And Petroski did show some different elements in his game. He's working on his striking. He does possess big power. I have been a little suspect of Petroski's gas tank. We saw him lose on the Ultimate Fighter show, which I guess they're not even going to show that as a pro fight, right? Excuse me here. So they're not going to show this as a... oh, excuse me, it is here. It is listed as a pro fight. And it was against Brian Battle. And in that fight, he faded in that fight. Before that, his only loss was against Aaron Jeffrey, a very talented fighter. But in that Brian Battle fight, he did break down a little bit. And I've had some question marks about his gas tank. Nick Maximov can go nonstop. I do believe that this fight has all the makings of being a barn burner type of fight. If Petroski can stuff those takedowns and really just make this a wild slugfest type of fight. But I edge Maximov being a little bit more disciplined, a little bit more polished with his cardio and his volume of strikes, where Petroski might be headhunting a little bit more. I could see Maximov kind of just being fluid and consistent for 15 minutes if the fight goes that long. And then down on the mat, although Petroski is a brute of a man and has that wrestling background, Maximov is the more polished overall grappler. So I wouldn't be surprised if Maximov does something down there, coming off a big win over Ponelei Seriano, and also defeating Cody Brundage in his UFC debut. Cody's a solid wrestler as well. So, you know, he showed how he matches up against that type of fighter and Petroski. Now, let's take a look at the live line here, because I think that this live line is a little ridiculous. That's what I'm thinking about this line right here. To have Petroski as high as a plus 330 against Nick Maximov, who's coming off a split decision victory over Ponelei Seriano. I know it's a different stylistic type of matchup, but, you know, Seriano is not necessarily the biggest name in the game, man. I don't know why Maximov's name is skyrocketing the way that it has here as far as the respect on his betting line. Now, keep in mind, I had an official play on Nick Maximov at underdog odds against Ponelei Seriano, so don't think that I don't respect the performance he put on there. I think that this line's off though, and I'm taking Nick Maximov to win the fight. And again, guys, stick with me here. I want to explain what my thoughts are on the betting lines, because there's a lot of favorites throughout this card, and I'm not necessarily going to be throwing dog picks at you left and right here. I have a couple, but the line, I don't feel comfortable taking Maximov at that type of line in a spot like this. So that's how I feel about it. Petroski is a dog. He's the king of the river rats. Shout out to you guys that know what I'm talking about there. And my pick will be Nick Maximov to win the fight. Does he pull off that sub? I think I'll lean more decision, that he just pushes the pace a little more so in the later rounds and takes the fight. So the match was rescheduled here for UFC Vegas 54. It was supposed to take place a couple weekends ago. I'm excited for this fight. I don't need to talk about it too much more. You guys know I was raving about this matchup here when it was initially supposed to take place. I'm high on this kid, Tatsuro Taira. I've been very pleased with what I've seen from him on tape. He's very technical. He's very well-rounded. Carlos Candelario is a tough opponent. I respect the work that he put on the show over at Dana White's Contender Series show. I felt that he should have probably won both fights. He did win one. He lost the other. Kind of got the bad end of the stick there. He's a well-rounded fighter as well, and I do think this is a step up in competition for Tatsuro, but I think that Tatsuro will rise to the occasion and will take this fight. We will pull up the betting line. At a minus 250 line on Tatsuro, making his UFC debut, he still needs to prove a little bit more to us, but I will tell you guys this once again. You break down the tape on him, you pull up his fight footage. This is a kid that has some legit potential, has the potential to be a real star in the sport, representing the country of Japan. We know that we need more of those types of fighters over in the UFC, representing the flag and the country of Japan. Tatsuro is the kid to do it. I expect him to be a step ahead down on the mat, potentially pulling off a submission. I expect him to be a step ahead with the striking. He should handle business. Just be wary. Don't grab this line if it gets out of hand. Don't throw it in a parlay if it's up in the 300s. Personally, I think you should probably avoid that if you're being responsible. But then again, at the end of the day, I think that he's going to get his hand raised. So it's a little bit of a tricky one there. Let's see how Tatsuro performs here in his North American, or his United States debut, fighting on this side of the world for the first time, making the trip, fighting under the UFC banner. Let's see if he has any type of jitters. There's a lot of little question marks, but as far as the ability goes, I'm not questioning it. And I have Tatsuro Tiara to win. Ooh, maybe he pulls off the sub. Maybe he pulls off the sub there. Virna Jandiroba taking on Angela Overkill Hill. This is an interesting fight. I was a little bit back and forth on who I wanted to pick here. We'll get to that pick here in a second. Virna Jandiroba, an absolute stud when it comes to her BJJ. Of course, that's her bread and butter. There was talks about her taking out, submitting in jiu-jitsu tournaments, girls like Amanda Nunes, Claudia Gadelha. She really was a very recognized name in the BJJ scene over in Brazil. She got talked into making her MMA debut. She's had already a very solid MMA career. You take a look at her record here. She is 17-3. She knows how to get her hand raised. But again, make no mistake, her bread and butter is her grappling. And she's quite good at getting the fight down to the mat. She has some pretty solid entries. I've seen her rip girls down to the mat. She's physically strong. And then you got Angela Hill, who, she's very much up there in age, but does not seem like age has caught up with her at all. She still seems to be in phenomenal shape. She's got better as her career has progressed. We talked about red wine earlier in the show, and Angela Hill is a fighter that has aged like some fine wine, right? I think that this fight is very much so a stylistic matchup to the extent that Angela Hill really needs to keep this fight on the feet. She has to prevent this fight from going down to the mat. I think that Jandiroba can definitely submit her. If not, of course, she can control round time and seal off some rounds there. Angela Hill will have the striking advantage. I definitely do expect her to get the better of the striking exchanges. She switches stances. She's constantly moving. And Jandiroba, as we saw recently against Amanda Ribas, was just, she didn't really have much to offer on the feet. She was throwing that 1-2. She has some decent pop in it, but she doesn't really show to have a lot of different tools in the feet as far as throwing different types of combinations. I'm not a fan of her kicks. And I definitely favor Angela Hill on the feet. Now, I was initially going to pick Angela Hill to win this fight. But, I was rewatching the Random Marcos fight with Angela Hill and how quickly she got armbarred. And as of recently, Tisha Torres had some success with her wrestling against Angela Hill. And then, I was watching Virna and some of her recent fights, and just especially in the beginning rounds, I mean, she really showed to have some solid strength, like I said, and some solid entries, and she was ripping these fighters down to the mat. I think that she gets Angela Hill down to the mat, and I think there's legit potential for her to get a sub on Angela Hill. If not, she could do some work down there, and she could potentially take 2 rounds of the 3. I'm gonna pick Virna Jandiroba to win this fight, and I really wanted to give you guys a dog pick here, but I gotta keep it real with you guys. I gotta stick with what my gut is when I'm breaking down the tape on these fighters. And yes, this would have been a solid spot to give you guys a dog, but I do think that Jandiroba will potentially get her arm raised here. I do think that's the case. Now, when it comes to the betting line, I think there's more value on an Angela Hill line at plus 155. I definitely feel there's a lot more value there than taking Jandiroba anywhere around minus 180 to minus 190. If you want Jandiroba, you better be getting a better bargain than that. Hopefully you can get her around minus 155. Maybe we see this line dip a little bit closer to fight night. Maybe we see some action coming in on Angela Hill. She's a recognizable fighter in the game. And although Angela Hill is 13-11, that obviously does not sum her up at all of who she is as a fighter. A lot of these recent fights could have gone her way, and in fact, I thought that she did defeat Claudia Gadelha, and I thought that she potentially did beat Michelle Waterson as well. So, and there's some other splits out there too. So, I will take Virna Jandiroba to win the fight, and keep an eye out for the sub as well. But if not, I think that she gets the fight down to the mat ample enough times that she takes the fight. Michael the Menace Johnson taking on Allan Patrick. Both these fighters been around the game for quite some time. Both of them getting up there in age for the division. Of course, Allan Patrick, almost 39 years old. We just recently saw him, you know, part of that Charles Oliveira fight camp. They all came in with the bleached hair and whatnot. We saw a lot of him this past weekend. So we know that he's very amped up for this fight. He's already mixed up in the UFC scene right here. He's fresh on the scene. He knows what it is to make the walk anyways, of course, but he's seeing everything. He's already mentally there, in my opinion. He's a wild fighter. Throws a lot of wild spinning attacks, a lot of spinning back fists. It's a little bit over the top, if I'm being quite honest. You know, we take a look at his last fight against Mason Jones, an up-and-comer. Allan Patrick was throwing everything but the kitchen sink at him in the first round. He looked to be fading. Mason Jones was in complete control of that fight. Eventually, Mason Jones did actually get him with a solid poke in the eye. At first, when I was watching the fight, I thought Patrick was milking it, but he really did get him good. But Patrick wanted no more of that fight. He wanted nothing to do with that fight. He took the I shouldn't say that he took the easy way out, because it's hard to say, man. He, like I say, did get poked pretty hard. I felt like he probably could have continued fighting, but who am I to say? He did look like he was gassing in there, and Mason Jones was in complete control. So take that for what it is. Before that, he loses to Bobby Green and Scott Holtzman. Scott Holtzman really went in there and handled him. Michael Johnson's a different type of fighter than Scott Holtzman, though. Michael Johnson is a striker that is going to entertain Allan on the feet. These guys are going to go at it there. Michael Johnson is a guy that knows. I think that Michael Johnson is more talented at this attribute and this skill than any fighter I've ever seen in the UFC. He knows how to lose a fight. All right, he knows how to lose a fight, and I say that. Meaning that he has a lot of physical abilities. He's a very talented fighter. And when things are going good for him, he really looks phenomenal in there. He just always makes a little mental error. He just always kind of blows a fight. He slows down. He eventually gets taken down, grinded out. He just doesn't seem to really just kind of even things out. He never lived up to the potential that he had, in my opinion. When he came off the Ultimate Fighter show back in the day, I really thought that he was a fighter that had a lot more potential than being now 19 and 17. I understand that he's been in there with a lot of high-level opponents. I know he's really lived off that Dustin Poirier knockout. That was without a doubt the highlight of his career. He almost took out Justin the Highlight Gaethje. Remember that, though? He broke down. In this fight, this was another fight that I was going to try to throw a dog at you guys, but I'm telling you guys, if you saw the way Allan Patrick looked in that Mason Jones fight, he was slowing down. And Allan Patrick, he's not the type of fighter that really uses his grappling and is going out there and submitting guys. In fact, if you run his resume, I don't believe he has any submission victories, and he's not a guy that looks to really use his wrestling. I mean, he'll shoot a couple sloppy takedowns just to kind of test you out. But I think Michael Johnson will stuff those takedowns, and he will keep this fight on the feet. And I got to edge Michael Johnson as just the fresher fighter going into the later rounds in a striking match. If Allan Patrick's going to get the victory here, I think he mixes things up, makes it a wild fight, and it potentially sneaks in a takedown or two, and we see Michael Johnson kind of get down on his luck, kind of give up on himself, like we've seen. Now, Michael Johnson coming off that Clay Guida loss, the Thiago Moises loss, where he was looking phenomenal before getting that leg snatched up. So you also want to kind of take a close look at that Thiago Moises fight. Michael Johnson was looking phenomenal, and in the early parts of that fight on the feet. I think if we see that type of ability from him once again, he'll get the better of the striking exchanges. I got Michael Johnson to win the fight. I got to go with Michael Johnson. He's a -150 with the comeback on Allan Patrick at +130. I would want Michael Johnson more around -125 here. That's where I want the line if I'm taking Michael Johnson. I don't know if you're going to be able to get that, though. Maybe -135. And if you're taking Michael Johnson, you could easily be, kicking yourself in the butt once again. That's just what he does. I know a lot of you guys have made a living betting on Michael Johnson, and he just costs you every time. So don't try to act like that's not you. You guys know who I'm talking about, and we've all been there. We've all eyed a Michael Johnson fight, and we said, oh, he's definitely the better fighter here, and he just drops the ball. But let's see if he can right the ship right here in this fight. Viviane Araujo taking on Andrea KGB Lee. This is a high caliber matchup for the division here. Both of these women have been looking very good as of recently, especially. Even Viviane, you know, I know she's coming off that Chookagian loss, but I thought that she had a solid showing of her abilities in that fight. She had some moments there, and Chookagian is one of the more underrated fighters in the game. Andrea Lee coming off 2 solid victories, looked very good against Cynthia Calvillo. Let me say that right before you guys attack me like crazy. Cynthia Calvillo. And then before that, absolutely beat down Antonina Shevchenko down on the mat using her wrestling and whatnot, kind of exploiting the fact that Antonina just really doesn't have that ground game. Before that, 3 losses in a row. A lot of people thought that she should have won the Lauren Murphy fight, and a lot of people thought that she should have won the Joanne, at the time, Calderwood fight, now Joanne Wood. The Roxanne Modafferi loss is not a good look. Andrea Lee, a very active fighter. She throws some crisp shots, some crisp straight shots. She has this kind of awkward, herky-jerky type of head movement. It does work for her at times. But I do feel that her stock might be rolling into this fight a little high based off those 2 wins. When, if you really look at them, Cynthia, although a solid fighter, Cynthia, she didn't really look like herself to me in that fight. She really was. I think she quit on the stool, if you guys remember. Okay, she quit on the stool. Now I know she was beat up and her face was pretty messed up, right? I think she had she might have had something wrong with her orbital there, but I felt like Cynthia was not really mentally there for that fight, even going into it. It's just maybe I shouldn't say that as it's fact, but it's just an opinion of mine from some of the things I remember seeing going into that fight. It could easily be wrong. It could have been that Andrea Lee just broke her spirit. So let me not just say that as it's 100% fact, but I just felt that wasn't the Cynthia that I normally see in there. Antonina Shevchenko is a girl that we know has major holes in her game, and Andrea took advantage of those. Viviane is a very well-rounded fighter. Viviane Araujo is a girl that has the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu background. That was her bread and butter coming into the sport of MMA, and you really wouldn't know it when you watch her fight. She's a fighter that has really shown to have some solid athletic abilities. Her striking is crisp. She has some serious power. She will tag you up on the feet. And I think that she's a very well-rounded fighter. I think that she's a very solid fighter in the division. And I like her movement better. She's a little bit more athletically gifted, in my opinion. She moves more fluidly. Or like I said earlier, Andrea Lee is just she has this weird type of stance, and she gets a little stiff when she's rocking like this and that. And in some fights, we've seen her kind of just like even in the Lauren Murphy fight, although she potentially should have took the fight, she let a lot of those fights play out a lot closer than they should have. The Joanne Calderwood fight, she kind of stiffens up a little bit. She does eat shots. I have seen and noticed that she's working on her head movement. She's been looking a little better there too. She's feisty in the clinch. She has some good knees. She's a solid fighter. But I'm going to go with Viviane Araujo here. I am going to take Viviane. I think that Viviane just a little bit more athletic, and she's crisp with her striking, carries a little bit more power, and she's not Shevchenko, Antonina Shevchenko down on the mat. Viviane is a girl that's underrated down on the mat, and she's not going to get exploited and beaten up down there. The Jessica I loss wasn't the best look, but victories over Montana De La Rosa and Roxanne Modafferi, a girl that Andrea Lee lost to, and I'm just throwing that out there. Obviously, you guys know fight math doesn't work like that. Andrea Lee with the 1.5 reach advantage, 2 inches taller, a little bit more lengthy, a little bit more rangy in there. I still take Araujo here, and she's going to be the very, very slight dog. This is basically, it's basically a pick'em fight, and I will take the Brazilian to pull off the fight. I'm excited to talk about this fight here. You guys know I've been very pumped to see Jake Hadley make his UFC debut for quite some time. I was very high on him going into the Dana White's Contender Series episode that he fought on. I actually had an official play mixed in with him on that fight card. The former Cage Warriors champion, he's just an extremely well-rounded fighter. If you want to see a cool video, go on YouTube or pull it up however you want. But you can see Jake Hadley. I'll show you a little glimpse of it, actually. But you can see Jake Hadley as a young kid talking about how he wants to be a UFC fighter. And you see him, he's just a little scrawny kid. And you could pull up a better version online. And he's blowing out the candles. Kind of looks like Sid from Toy Story. You know, he's got that kind of cranium shape and that kind of haircut with the teeth and all that. But it's all good. You know, Sid, is his name Sid? I think his name was Sid. Remember the kid they used to torture all the toys? But I think that Sid got a bad rap. He wasn't that bad of a kid. But Jake Hadley kind of carrying that type of energy into the cage as well. He kind of has that type of mentality. You see him here throwing the bird. He's kind of a little bit socially awkward. You know, I'm not going to go into all the details with some of the things that have gone on, but just vaguely, you guys remember there was a lot of talk about the UFC staff and the UFC not appreciating the way that he was carrying himself when he made that the Dana White's Contender Series showing. And Dana White, although he didn't like how he handled himself, he knew that this kid had some real talent and he had to sign him. He went out there, got the rear naked choke victory over Mitch Rapasso. Mitch the Possum Rapasso, as I like to call him. Mitch Rapasso is a legit fighter. He's since bounced back with a big victory. He's a talented kid. He was the #1 pick on the Ultimate Fighter show, if you guys remember. A solid wrestler, a tough kid from Jersey. And that was a big win for Hadley. Now, Hadley did miss weight going into that fight, if you guys remember, and he still got the contract. That's how high Dana White is on this kid, and that's how high I am on him. I think that he is very legit, very polished on the feet with his striking, very polished down on the mat. We saw him taken down early in that fight against Mitch Rapasso, was pulling rubber guard, was going for omoplatas, all types of wild stuff down there in the mat, just controlling the fight, getting right back up to his feet. He's very technical with his striking. He's going to be a problem for anybody in the division, and I think that he's one of the top prospects in the sport of MMA right now. 100% one of the top prospects in the game right now. Of course, we have the young Dagestani kid who's also fighting out of England now too, who a lot of people are extremely high on, who's fighting in the division. We may see these two fighters square off, and the word is that they actually have a little bit of a beef already. So some exciting stuff to come down the line in the division. Jake Hadley, 25 years old. He's taking on Allan Nascimento, who really had a good showing of himself against Tager Ulanbekov. And it was a very close fight. I will say this though, Tager has since, and that was a split decision fight. It was very close. Tager has since shown that he's just really not what a lot of people thought that he is and what he could be. He's a talented fighter, but I think that he's not really the most physically blessed fighter. He's just a guy that's trains and hangs around with all those tough Dagestani guys that he's around, and he kind of rises up to their level. But I think that he's a little bit physically lacking, in my opinion. He's a little bit physically weak. But if you guys catch my drift, you guys all knew that kid from the neighborhood that just didn't really have it. But you know what? When it comes to the sport of MMA, if you keep grinding, you keep training, your skill level will kind of rise up. But you guys catch my point anyway. The Tager Ulanbekov loss, split decision loss, although it looked good, even though it was a loss, it doesn't look as good as we see Tager's performances. Before that, he had the rear naked choke victory, and then he had the loss to Julian Paiva. That was a fun fight. Julian Paiva is showing to be a solid fighter too. There's no question Allan Nascimento is a decent fighter. He's a good fighter. He's more of a submission artist, but I don't think he's going to have anything for Jake Hadley there. I think that Jake Hadley will be more than prepared to go down to the mat, and I think he'll be the superior grappler. He'll be the superior striker. He'll have more pop on his shots, has great cardio, great conditioning from everything that we've looked into, and he's the real deal. I'm very, very excited to see White Kong work his way towards the top of the division. And the flyweight division now is really becoming one of the more solid divisions in the UFC. There's a lot of up-and-coming talent in this division. It's filling up. I hear people always jabbing at the flyweight division. I think you guys are missing what's going on with the division. There's some real star power with Brandon Moreno, Davison Figueroa, all these young kids coming up. The flyweight division's where it's at right now. How about that, boys? All right, we pull up the live line, and we're talking about a line right now of... They might not show it here for us. It's all right, though. Oh, here it is. Jake Hadley. He's right around -210 up to the -225 range. I know some people may think that this is a little high. He had a little bit of a slow start. I shouldn't even say that, but a little bit slow start in Dana White's Contender Series. Once he starts to get going, we saw the talent that he possesses. He's going to be a step ahead of Allan Nascimento, and I'm not opposed to that type of line, a minus 225 line on Jake Hadley. Although this is going to be a little bit of a step up for him. Although he actually has battled some decent competition too. So understand that it's not like he's just fought nobodies over there. He's fought guys with decent records. Allan Nascimento's legit though. And at the end of the day though, I do pick Jake Hadley, White Kong to win this fight. I would love to see a finish here. He has all the potential in the world to finish anybody he steps in there with. But Allan Nascimento's very game. I might edge more a decision for Hadley. Frank Camacho taking on Manuel Torres. Now, I did get a little excited when I saw the name Manuel Torres. For a second, I thought I might have said Miguel Torres, making his return to the sport. Miguel Torres, a legend of the game, if you guys remember Miguel Torres. Manuel Torres, an up-and-coming fighter coming off a solid performance on Dana White's Contender Series. It was a little bit controversial. His opponent acted like he got poked in the eye a little bit and kind of gave in, and Torres just followed up with some strikes. But before that, Torres was looking very crisp with his jab and his striking. I was impressed with how he looked in the beginnings of that fight. Frank Camacho has really been having a tough time as of recently. Still only 32 years old, but he's been in a lot of battles. 31 pro fights. He's fought up at the welterweight division. He's been in there with guys like Neil Magny. He's been in there with Jeff Neal, Drew Dober. He's been in there with some legit talent. As of recently, Beneil Dariush, getting submitted by Beneil Dariush. And then as of recently, he took a nasty knockout loss to Justin James. Man, this is a fight that I've been very much back and forth with as well. The Justin James knockout was not a good look, and that was almost 2 years ago. So he's had ample time to rest up and rest his chin from the knockout loss there. It's just that the fact that he let that happen, man, really upsets me. And the fact that Manuel Torres was looking crisp with his striking and his boxing. Oh, man, it's kind of tough here because I do think that Frank Camacho has a legit chance to show up coming off the long layoff, look as sharp as ever, and just to be the more experienced fighter. He has good boxing. He's extremely tough. We've seen him in wars before. Of course, the Damian Brown fight was an absolute war. But this is another fight, man, that I was close to going with the dog, man. But I got to go with Manuel Torres to win this fight. If you watch the beginning of that fight on Dana White's Contender Series, you'll see that Manuel showed major improvement with his boxing coming from the fight that he had. That was just... coming into that fight, it was only about 5 months, 4 to 5 months prior, and even some of these other fights just previously, not too long before that fight, he didn't look as sharp in those other fights, and I see major progress. And that makes me believe that we're going to see some more progress in this fight. I think there's legit potential that we see major progress in Manuel Torres, and he already looked good in the beginnings of that fight. So I'm going to take Manuel Torres here. Frank Camacho's chin has been put through a lot, and I could see Manuel Torres jabbing him up and hurting him. There could be potential for Frank the Crank to be put out here. There's that legit type of potential. He's been through some wars. He's coming off another knockout loss. I'm going to go with the younger, fresher fighter here, and Manuel Torres. It's almost a pick 'em here. Manuel Torres is the slight favorite, minus 130. I get it. I understand it. I've been on the fence a little bit about that pick there. But at the end of the day, I will pick Manuel Torres to win the fight. The young up-and-comer. He's been looking crisp with the boxing. Katlyn Chookagian, the tennis player, taking on Amanda Ribas. Amanda Ribas coming off a victory over Virna Jandiroba. Stylistically, that was a very good fight for her. We know that Amanda Ribas is decorated and very, very comfortable down in the mat. She was able to avoid Jandiroba's wrath down there. Of course, Amanda Ribas, the daughter of a very well-known jiu-jitsu player. It's been a lifestyle for her. Her striking has really came around throughout the years as well, though. Katlyn Chookagian, though, is without a doubt fighting at the best of her abilities that we've ever seen. I mean, she's really hitting the prime of her career. Now, I know she did lose some fights as of recently. Now, of course, that fight being the Jessica Andrade fight where she was hurt and finished there. She also had a loss to Valentina Shevchenko, in my opinion, the greatest women's mixed martial artist of all time. So you take that for what it is. And then before that, the Jessica I fight. So once again, you see a blemish on a fighter who we're looking into from Jessica I, which is not always a good look, but you guys got to understand that Jessica I has done that. Again, she had the victory over Viviane Araujo as well. But Jessica I has done that. She's gone out there. She took out Katlyn Chookagian. So it is what it is. That was a long time ago. But again, back to the point here. Katlyn Chookagian has just been looking great. She's 33 years old. She's a true athlete. Comes in with great cardio. She comes in with a great frame. She's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage here. She's significantly taller than Amanda. 6 inches taller. So again, even though you only see a 2-inch reach advantage on the arms, she will have a great length advantage in her legs, and she does like to throw a lot of kicks. Amanda Ribas might try to grab a hold of one of those legs and try to get the fight down to the mat, where she may have a little bit of an advantage, or she should have a little bit of an advantage down on the mat. And in fact, she does. She is the more polished and decorated jiu-jitsu player. But Chookagian's not a fish out of water down there. She's not the best down there, though. I want to make sure I make that clear. So I do think that that's a route of victory for Amanda Ribas. Now, in the Marina Rodriguez fight, she had success early with the takedown, and then she didn't go back to it, and she got starched. So not really showing the best fighter IQ in there at times. But you know, Amanda Ribas, woo, she's a cool chick. And it's funny, actually, my cousin bumped into her at Walmart a couple months back. Over at, you know, down over here by American Top Team or whatnot. She was in Coconut Creek. And Amanda Ribas, she's a really cool chick. You guys know her post-fight interviews are always very entertaining. She's a cool chick. At the end of the day, though, I think that Katlyn Chookagian puts the volume out there again. She racks up the points. Her confidence is sky high, coming off 3 victories in a row, taking out Jennifer Maia, Viviane Araujo, and Cynthia Calvillo. Oh, that name, man. But again, those are all solid victories. And of course, she got that redemption on the Shevchenko sister. I'll go with Katlyn Chookagian to win the fight here. And you can expect to hear a lot of yells and grunts, those tennis type screams. And her striking is just getting better and better. You never know. Maybe you see the power stepped up a little bit, but probably not. But maybe she could bloody Ribas up a little bit with volume. But at the end of the day, I'll take Katlyn Chookagian via decision. We'll take a look at the live line, and we're talking about a line right now of Chookagian right around that -170 to -180 range, which I'm not crazy about, really. I think, like I said, Ribas has some avenues of victory here, and she's a very talented fighter on the feet as well. I would like Chookagian more around -150 to -160. But if you can't get that, I mean, Chookagian is a solid fighter, but I don't know. Ribas is tough too, man. This is a fight. Maybe we'll see. I got Katlyn Chookagian via decision. So now I know both of these fighters do deliver just about every time. Both these fighters always bring it. Luis Smolka taking on Davey Grant. But you tell me how Nick Maximov and Andre Petroski is not above this fight, and why that fight's not the co-main event here. Rather than this one here. But again, both these fighters do bring it, so I guess that's going to be the answer here. The UFC is rewarding them for constantly bringing the fight. Davey Grant, got to give respect to Davey Grant here. Davey Grant potentially just took out Adrian Yanez, and without a doubt gave Adrian Yanez the most competitive fight that we've seen Yanez face since he's really bursted on the scene. Davey Grant is a guy that I used to kind of poke fun at. And I got to say, and I've been saying, I've been wrong for quite some time now. Davey Grant absolutely stuck to the game and continued to work on his craft and became a better and better version of himself. We've seen him really have some big time performances over the last couple of years. The Jonathan Martinez knockout was an amazing performance. The Martin Day knockout in the 3rd round was a very impressive knockout victory. And then again, the Adrian Yanez fight just making that fight play out as closely as he did. A lot of people thought he was completely outmatched. I thought Yanez was going to go in there and style on him. The line showed that everybody agreed with me there too. But Davey Grant did show up there. The loss to Marlon Vera. We know Marlon Chito Vera is a stud, so you can't really put him to the fire there. He's 36 years old, but he's taking on Luis Smolka here, who's only 30 years old. I know he's been around for a long time, but Luis Smolka, we could talk about Luis here for a second. Luis, he had a rough road, and I think a lot of people turned their back on him, including me. But when you look at those 4 losses that he had before getting cut, Brandon Moreno, ex-champ, Ray Borg, stud, Matheus Nicolai, stud, one of the top guys in the division right now, wreaking havoc, and Tim Elliott, an OG, a crafty dude. So he had those 4 losses. He went out, had 3 fights in a row before getting another opportunity where he pulled off an armbar victory over Su Madarji. So, I mean, and then you even look at his 2 recent losses. Matt Schnell was looking phenomenal on the feet just recently. Casey Kenny, a solid fighter. And then he got knocked out by Vince Morales. That was not a good look. And if you take a look at his victories, I will say Jose Alberto Quinones, Ryan McDonald, the Suma Darji armbar, okay. Not a lot of big victories to put under his name. Ben 10 win. Whatever happened to Ben 10 win? If anybody knows, hit the comment section up. He's a missing guy, huh? But I think he did start. I think he worked his way over to Asia, if I remember correctly. But anyways, Davey Grant is going to get the better of the striking exchanges here. Luis Smolka, we talked about it earlier in regards to Tager Ulanbekov, of a fighter that just really continues to train and work on their craft, and they rise their overall ability, their capabilities, but they don't necessarily have the God-given born abilities. And I think Luis Smolka is one of those kind of guys. I mean, he has some great abilities as far as his toughness goes, is all that. But when it comes to his quick twitch type athletic abilities, he's very flat-footed and he's very plotty. And I think that Davey Grant will light him up on the feet. And I'm going to pick Davey Grant to get the victory here. And I think he could bloody Luis Smolka up pretty good. If Luis Smolka is going to have success, he has to make it a dog fight like he always does try to do. Try to rip this fight down to the mat, get some grappling exchanges intertwined in the matchup. But I think Davey Grant's going to be ready for all that. And I think Davey Grant's going to crack him up a bit. And he could potentially get a knockout as well. We've seen that type of power from him. We've seen Smolka hurt too. Smolka was, we talked about the chin, and Smolka has shown to go out there and take some solid shots before, but he's coming off that knockout loss to Vince Morales, so maybe it's catching up with him. He's still only 30 though. I got Davey Grant. Does he get the knockout? I'm going to lean decision, but there's some legit potential for Grant to get a finish there. Ryan Superman Spann, I guess it's worth noting, right? Versus Ian Cutelaba, the Hulk. They had the Marvel nicknames. Ian Cutelaba, one of my favorite fighters in the game. I love the energy he brings. You remember him taking Khalil Roundtree's soul away from him at the weigh-ins. I mean, Khalil Roundtree was like, you ever seen Space Jam? Remember when the fighters lost their mojo? When those aliens, they basically did that. They sucked their spirit out of the players. And that's exactly what happened to Roundtree at the weigh-in. He was not himself in there. And Roundtree is a talented dude. Ian Cutelaba, we know that he has the wrestling and grappling abilities. He can always exploit his opponent if they're not up to par down there. We've seen him do that. Coming off a victory against Devin Clark, who's also a polished wrestler, and Cutelaba was the better there, really shining with his grappling abilities. Ian Cutelaba just runs across the octagon and looks to just take you out. Now, he did have that draw against Dustin Jacoby after really putting it on Jacoby in the first round, but then losing the next 2 rounds. That was an official play of mine on Jacoby, and Jacoby won those last 2 rounds, but just that slow start allowed Ian Cutelaba to get the draw there. Lost to Magomed Ankalaev 2 times in a row, an absolute stud, and you can't be too harsh on him there. Ian Cutelaba, in my opinion, is going to be the sharper fighter here. He's going to be quicker to the punch. His striking's coming around. Ryan Spann is decently polished from a technical standpoint and does have some power. We've seen him knock some guys out, but he's very slow. We talked about giraffe syndrome. We've talked about it recently. You know, Ryan Spann has been diagnosed with giraffe syndrome, so it's not a joking matter. And Cutelaba will be quicker to the punch, quicker to his movement, and I could also see Cutelaba easily using his wrestling to rip Spann down to the mat and get on top of him and hurt him down there. We may see Ryan Spann look a little bit like a fish out of water down on the mat. He's a big boy, but he doesn't want Cutelaba, who's a pit bull, on top of him. He will make Ryan Spann look like a chew toy if he gets flattened out on his back there, man. So I'm taking Ian Cutelaba to win this fight, and we'll take a look at the live line here. Right now, Cutelaba right around a -220 over Spann at +180. So you know, we do have to recognize that Spann, it carries some big power, and if you want, or he has the potential. I shouldn't say it like that, man, because I don't know if he consistently carries that power, and he's slow. But if he does, it's a light heavyweight matchup too. He's a big boy. If he does land a big shot, he can put you out. Recent knockout victories, knocked out Misha Serkinov, and yeah, that was it as of recently. But you know, Misha did not look good in that fight. So the pick is Ian Cutelaba, and I think the line's respectable. I think it's pretty accurate. I think they hit that on the head there. Who are you guys taking in that fight? This is an interesting fight here. I'm curious, is anyone taking Ryan Spann at those dog odds? Kind of curious if anybody is. Hit up the comment section there. I'm on Cutelaba. Cutelaba has more avenues of victory. He'll win the striking exchanges, and he has the wrestling in his back pocket. He's tenacious. He's going to run across the octagon, and you're going to see a lot of volume from him. I got Ian Cutelaba to win the fight. Hey, guys, if you're looking to sign up for a new sports book, don't hesitate, man. Reach out to me, bovada.lv. Let me get you my referral link. I'll give you the instructions of how to sign up and whatnot. I'll give you my preferred email. Just ask me about it, and we will both get a bonus. I'll get a bonus to my account, and you will get a bonus too. And again, I get someone in the comment section always poking some jabs. I do not work with bovada.lv. I do not work for them. When I am referring them, it's just because they are the best sports book that I've came across. And yes, I get a referral bonus to my account, which any of you guys can get as well. Understand that. So if you have an account, if you have refer a friend, you get a little bonus to your sports betting account. For you amateurs that don't understand that, pretty much every sports betting website allows that. So if you have any, if you're signed up to any type of sports book account, you could always refer a friend and get a little bonus. That doesn't mean you work for them, and I'm trying to promote them. They are the best sports book out there, in my opinion. So that one little rat that's always out there, you know, in the comment section, I'm gonna leave it some cheese for you there. Let's see you in the comment section once again. We got the main event of the card: Aleksandar Rakić taking on the ex-light heavyweight champion Jan Błachowicz. Jan Błachowicz coming off a very questionable performance against Glover Teixeira. We understand that Glover Teixeira has completely revolutionized his career, but I did not expect Jan Błachowicz to look the way that he did against Glover, taken down, put in that rear naked choke. It was quite suspect. And especially when you remember what Błachowicz did from a grappling standpoint to Israel Adesanya, getting a lot of takedowns in that fight, scoring points there. I thought Błachowicz was always decently well-rounded with his overall game, and Teixeira really just ran through him. I don't know what was going on with Błachowicz. I think from what I remember hearing, he said he was fully prepared for that fight and just did not understand what happened. So you got to really be a little suspect on Jan Błachowicz right now. Aleksandar Rakić is a guy that is just a guy that always goes out there and delivers a victory. I thought that he defeated Volkan Ozdemir. That was an actual official play of mine at the time. I thought I got stiffed a little bit there with the split decision. I thought Rakić won that fight. If it wasn't for that, he's undefeated under the UFC banner, taking out guys, which we will pull up, taking out guys. You know, it really kicked off with the Justin Ledet victory. Of course, his first victory over Francimar Barroso, who was fighting in PFL for some time and whatnot, jiu-jitsu guy. But the Justin Ledet fight is where he showed that he had some of the most heavy leg kicks that we've ever seen in the game. He really was just destroying the legs of Justin Ledet, the very boxing-oriented fighter. The knockout over Devin Clark was phenomenal. The head kick over Jimmy Manoa. I mean, he was going out there getting finishes there, back-to-back finishes. His stock was riding so high. Now, in the last three fights, like I said, I thought that he won all three of these fights, and they were against solid fighters: Volkan Ozdemir, Anthony Smith, Thiago Santos. I mean, very, battle-tested fighters, and I think Jan Błachowicz is, you know, he's a branch off the tree of these types of fighters, legit fighters that been around the game. I don't see any reason why Aleksandar Rakić can't continue the streak of taking out those types of guys. On the feet, we know Błachowicz has some nasty body kicks. He's polished there. I think Rakić carries more power. Rakić is going to have a 2-inch height advantage. The reaches are going to be the same here. So a little bit of a leg reach advantage for Rakić. Not much, though. Rakić is he's just a tank of a man. You see him here. I mean, this guy, you know, the Serbian fighter, I believe he also, fighting out of Austria, but of Serbian descent. I mean, he's just a tank of a man. And from a physical standpoint, it's just about as good as it gets in the division, as far as I'm concerned. And although he hasn't been getting the finishes as of recently, do understand that there's always real potential for him to take out his opponent with leg kicks, chopping them down, just wearing his opponents out, and landing some big shots. And I think that the finishes are going to start to come, in my opinion, over the next couple fights. And I know he's going to be fighting higher level opponents, working his way towards the top, but I still say the finishes come around over the next couple fights for Rakić. He has that type of ability, in my opinion, and this is a great test for him. I'm picking Aleksandar Rakić to win the fight. You guys know I've been extremely high on Magomed Ankalaev, Aleksandar Rakić, and Yuri Prochazka for some time. So Rakić is a guy, although he hasn't been extremely active. It's been over a year since his last fight, and overall just really hasn't been that active. He's only 30 years old. I want to see him start stringing off some more fights here. And you know, again, this is the big test here, man. He's fighting the former champ, the just dethroned champion. I mean, one fight away from being the champion of the world. This is a great opportunity to see what would have happened if Rakić would have had that opportunity. So he gets this victory, and then we're talking about some big fights down the line. Look at the rankings here. Glover Teixeira, who will be taking on Yuri Prochazka. You got Jan Błachowicz, the #1 contender here. And you got Aleksandar Rakić, the #3 contender. And you got Magomed Ankalaev right there. Jamal Hill's been making some noise, and you know, the division has slowed down a little bit towards the latter half of the light heavyweight top 15. But make no mistake, Glover is looked phenomenal. Jan Błachowicz is still Jan Błachowicz. Yuri is Yuri. Rakić, Magomed, Anthony Smith's a stud too. So I mean, the top 5 guys. It's what the division is about, and I'm excited to see how this fight plays out. I think that Rakić is live to get the finish here. He's live to get the finish, and I hope that these fighters go out there and they clash. I really hope that they throw down. Now, there is also a realistic possibility that Rakić pumps the brakes a little bit and tries to cruise his way to a decision. We've seen him do that recently, and maybe he gets a little bit, plays it a little bit safe, understanding the threat that Błachowicz possesses as well. There is that type of potential. I'm going to say that Rakić steps it up, though, and really goes gun-ho and lands some big shots and cracks the legs of Błachowicz and does some damage. That's my pick there. We take a look at the live line, and again, for whatever reason, Best Fight Odds has been slacking on showing the live line on the main event, but you see it here on Bovada.lv, which hopefully you guys are looking to sign up. Hit me up. I'll get you that referral link. But Rakić is right around a -190 right now with the comeback of +155 on the ex-champ. I favor Rakić more so. I think he just gets the job done. Błachowicz is coming off a very questionable performance, and I just can't bank on him coming through right now. I got Rakić working his way to a future title shot. So I got Aleksandar Rakić to win the fight. There we go. UFC Vegas 54. Just hit up the whole fight card. Didn't even drink a sip of water. No types of liquids over here. The throat's parched. I'm getting ready for a big year to come here. We're just getting things rolling right now. Again, apologize if the lighting is a little weird and whatnot. Just bear with me. You guys, you'll see. And again, as always, much respect and much love to all you guys that hung around to the end of this video. Coming off a very solid betting event last weekend. Let's keep that momentum going here. I see some solid spots to make some money. Hopefully you guys are making the right moves. There's some things you could do with this card to make it a very, very safe and solid betting fight card. There's some traps that are out there as well, so be wary. And if you guys are looking to work with me, you guys know the routine. Shoot me a message through any of my social media or my email. I'm always available. I'll let you guys know my pricing. And what else? I got to give you guys something to go out on, huh? Whew. Man, what can I give you guys, man? I always go to those cigarettes, man. And I want to say this much. I've seen a lot of comments of people that have said, man, I kicked the cigarettes a year ago, or, you know, I got to kick them now, or I've kicked them and whatnot. And I'll say this much, instead of just going on about quitting and this and that, for those of you guys that really did do that and that have committed to it, much respect to you guys, man. The other day I was reading someone's comment that said that they stopped smoking for almost a year now. And I think that had something to do maybe with these videos, just kind of refreshing it. When I say this at the end, it makes my heart warm to know that I could kind of give a little bit of something positive back out there, man. Because you know, maybe one of you guys gets to live a longer life and be around your family more, see your great grandkids and whatnot, and you don't take years off your life with that garbage. All right. And for those of you guys that still smoke, I still love you guys. Don't take it too harshly. I'm sure a lot of you guys are cutting the video off already at this point, but all right. I love all you guys, man. I'm tired out here. I'm going to upload this video. I'm going to do some editing here, and we'll get those timestamps right up for you guys in the description. And on that note, signing out, the Teller.
Welcome to the show. This is the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller. The teller. The teller.